Buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
The Michael Dukes Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Dukes Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Here's my rifle, this is my gun. This is for fighting, this is for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday. Your chance to sound off on a 2A issues of a 2A nature right here on the big radio program. Each and every Friday, we take the time out to dive into it and talk about my favorite topic and to go over all the things that are important and happening around the world and around the country in regards to the Second Amendment and firearms laws and gun rights and so much more. Good morning and welcome to the program. Thanks for coming in and joining us. We are going to, we're not going to have any guests today. So we're going to, you and I are going to make it up as we go along. That's how it's going to work today. We've got we got a bunch of headlines that we can read into, and we're going to be discussing all kinds of stuff from around the country, including new fights over the age requirement for the Second Amendment. We're going to talk about safe storage of firearms and why it's important. We're going to talk about the police and how that's working. The new Uniform Crime Report has come out, and ooh, baby, it's a mess. So there's a bunch of stuff here that we're going to be able to chit-chat about today. But most importantly, to me anyway, is the fact that I like to have some interactivity with you on Friday, because that was the whole point of starting a single show every week that dealt with firearms, is that I wanted to be able to help demystify the firearm. Because, we're faced with a lot of stuff in the news media, the talking heads and the networks and the cable news. And, they've always got some expert on there who's trying to tell you something or other about firearms. And what I found out is that even from networks that, ostensibly are nothing but conservative right-wing hacks, like, Fox News or something, what I've seen consistently is that there are nobody knows what the hell they're talking about. I mean, there are a bunch of hacks on all these networks when it comes down to actual guns, gun laws, gun safety, practical gun stuff. And, it really drove home the fact that we needed to go out there and try and counteract some of the misinformation. And I'm going to call it misinformation. Sometimes I think it's just deceptiveness. I think they don't really care whether they think it's right. They're just going to say what they think and pretend like it's vetted news. And so that's why we got Firearms Friday started all those years ago. And so we have a feature that we use every Friday called Gun Q&A, which is, the questions and answers. And there's no such thing as a dumb gun question. It doesn't matter if I've answered it a million times before. I will do my best to answer it yet again. And so we are going to... We're gonna take your phone calls, and if we have to answer calls that are super simple, then great. If we have to get into something that's more complex and more about the legalities of certain things, then we'll do that as well. And again, it's not always because I'm not the end all be all of firearms knowledge. I mean, I have quite a bit, but I've got Google at the I got some Google foo. And then I've got the smartest listeners on the planet when it comes to this stuff. I got a lot of folks who are very knowledgeable and probably knowledgeable in areas of which I am completely ignorant. So between me and the listeners and Google and DuckDuckGo or whoever else we're using these days, we'll probably be able to find those answers. So we're going to open up the phone lines right now, the Pivotel call-in line at 433-3150, 433-3150. And I'm ready to feel free to call into the show today with your firearms questions. I mean, whether it's, again, laws, tactics, tips, advice, whatever it is, just give us a call at 907-433-3150, 907-433-3150. We'd love to hear from you, so just give us a ring and let's get it going on, right? Let's get it going. Before we jump into this, the rest of Firearms Friday, I would I have a quick thank you that I would like to put out there, and if you would indulge me for just a minute, I would appreciate it. I want to say special thanks to a couple of local businesses here in the Valley. Yesterday, I had to put down my dog, my buddy, my companion, my best friend for 14 years, almost coming on to 15 years. My little Boston Terrier, and I did not want to do it. I did not want to take him to the vet. I did not want to. And so Dr. Kaiser, who is they call it Mobile Moose, that's the name of his business, the Mobile Moose, it came to my house, and he administered all the appropriate agents and did it with us being able to sit around and be with them, and it was just amazing. It was amazing, and I'm so glad that he offers that service, and he and his assistant were just so gracious and so understanding, and it was one of the hardest things I've done, quite honestly. And when it was all said and done, they just did an amazing job. So, special thank you to the Mobile Moose, and I'm glad that they are available out there. So, if you're in the Valley or anywhere in the area and you need that kind of service, because I mean nobody wants to have their animal all terrified spending the last few minutes inside of a unknown vet center, that is definitely worth every penny of it to have that happen. And then the second business that I'd like to say thank you to is a place in Palmer called Passages, and they are a pet crematorium. And so I was able to take Ruger once we were done with the doctor. I was able to take him into Palmer and go over there, and they treated him with the utmost respect. And it was just so well done, and I appreciate that. It's so it is it just to Mobile Moose and to Passages in Palmer. I just want to say thank you. You guys did some amazing stuff, and I cannot recommend. I can't more highly recommend them. I cannot recommend them any more highly. However you want to say that, they are basically 5 stars, both of them, double thumbs up. 5 out of 4 waffles. I mean, that kind of thing. So big thank you to them for helping on what was probably one of the toughest things I've had to do as an adult. I've had other dogs, and it's always been sad when they pass. But I will say that that was the toughest. That was the toughest right there. All right. So whatever you want to talk about as far as gun-related stuff, we'd love to do it. We'll even pull some stuff out of the chat room as well, and talk with get the listeners. They'll help us with some Firearms Friday talking points and chat bubbles and everything. So in fact, we'll start off with Anthony. He says, Don't have a question per se, but a PSA. If you use one of those dry fire laser cartridges for training with your subcompact 9mm concealed carry, make sure you lube your gun and don't leave it in there. He spent like 2 hours disassembling and extracting it from his firearm yesterday. Yeah, probably not a bad idea. That's probably not a bad idea. So thank you, Anthony, for that comment here as we go through. All right, well, let's set up for what we're going to be doing. Oh, by the way, we're going to be finishing up this morning because I need a little bit of a pick-me-up. I'll be honest with you. It's, I'm a little low, a little slow this morning. So in the last segment of the show this morning, we're going to be diving into it with Willie Waffle, who's going to come in and share with us everything that is everything that is going to be coming on in the entertainment industry, the streams, the movie news, all that kind of stuff. So he's going to come in and lighten the mood a little bit here at the end of the show this morning. But let's set up for the rest of what we got going on. So here's some of the stories that I want to talk about today. And then again, we're taking your phone calls and letting you, fill us in. But the first story is the FBI Uniform Crime Report for 2020 has just come out. And it's not good news. It's not. We've been on a downward trend for many years and really done well, I think. Last year, 2020, not a good year. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Dallas police chief, who is doing exactly opposite of what activists have demanded and is getting results. Pretty amazing stuff. We're going to talk about safe storage, and we're going to talk about not mandatory safe storage, but common sense safe storage. And I got to tell you, this is this is one of those examples that just kills you when you read it. And I'm going to tell you why I am an advocate for making sure that you do have safe storage and why. And then we'll talk a little bit here about how President Biden is now taking his first steps towards packing the Supreme Court. And what does that mean? So we got a lot of different things to chat about and talk about this morning. But as I said earlier, your phone calls reign supreme. So let's go and see what you guys have to say today on Gun Q&A, 433-3150. Again, the Pivotel call-in line, just one click away for you guys. Let's go over here. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Michael, this is Rich from Kenai.
Hey, Rich.
First off, I wanted to give you my condolences for your experience yesterday. That's one of the hardest things you ever have to do as a pet owner because of the fact that the pets are all they want and know is love, and they're always happy to see you. So that giving that up
it's hard.
Is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also wanted to ask you, I had recently moved here, and where I came from was an extremely liberal state, and we had to go get a conceal and carry permit and do all those things. And then when I transferred my toys up here, it was kind of interesting because I went over to pick everything up, and amongst my stuff, I had my carry gun, which is just my little 9mm, and I was able to pick up everything I had except for my 9mm, and I was informed that the law is such that I have to have an official Alaska driver's license in order to pick that up, but I was able to pick up everything else that I had, which makes the 9mm look like a pea shooter.
Right.
And I found it kind of perplexing as to why what the idea is behind that law. And maybe it's a simpleton question, but I was just curious. I mean, the guy at the store was all apologetic, and
right.
like I'm sorry, man, because people have gone off on him. It's my gun, and but I was just like, hey, man,
Right.
I know it's the law.
Right. Well, what he's following is from my understanding is the federal law, because there is a federal law where you can't go across state lines to buy a handgun. That you can buy long guns, but handguns are restricted to state, they don't want somebody flying down or crossing a state line somewhere and buying a gun and then going back into another place. And I think that is the attempt there to try and prevent that, that if you are moving as a resident, you should be able to, to cross the state. If you're becoming a resident, I should say, they want you to have legal, lawful Alaska ID to be able to pick up the pistol instead of the long guns, which again never made any sense to me, because like you said, you're picking up buffalo rifles and elephant guns and all this other kind of stuff, and they won't let you have this little pea shooter because it's you don't have an Alaska driver's license, even though you shipped it from yourself to whatever. That's why, I mean, I've often advocated for people, if they are going to move from one state to the other, that they leave their firearms for last and they just transit them themselves, either through Canada or over the airline. They take that one final trip via airplane and just pack them all in a crate and bring them with you, kind of thing. Because it avoids a lot of those headaches and those hassles. But I think that's what it is. It's addressing that the federal overreach of saying you can't have that intrastate transit of the firearm. And Greg is saying in the chat room, be sure to have your physical address on your new state ID. So apparently they have to have your physical address. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I got my license and all that stuff, and I was trying to figure out what the difference is going to be. Like down there, it was kind of best to really not let anyone be aware that you were carrying, because some Karen would call the cops on you thinking you're a gun-wielding maniac.
Right.
But up here, I know it's a lot different, and I don't know, if do they honor my carry permit? Do I need one?
You do not need one.
For my little pea shooter?
You do not need one. We are a right to carry state, and you have that ability to do it. I always recommend that you make sure you cover the concealed carry course, because it's got a lot of legality stuff in it. Rich, hold the line for a second. I'll answer the rest of your questions off the air, but we got to go. Hold the line. The Michael Dukes Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Streaming live every weekday morning, 6 to 9 a.m. on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, Rich. Yeah, no, you don't have to have a concealed carry license in the state of Alaska. It's right. If you are legally allowed to own the firearm, then you can legally carry it, of course, with the exceptions of any building where it's posted, or, federal buildings, yada, yada, yada. Anywhere that you're legally allowed to be with a firearm, you can carry it. My recommendation is that you take an Alaska concealed carry course, not to get necessarily the permit, which you could, but you at least need to understand if there's any differences in Alaska law from the laws in which where you were at, and that is a component of the course.
Sure.
But other than that, no, you can go forth armed at any time. You are good to go.
Oh, I love the smell of freedom, buddy. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, bud. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you calling in and joining us today. That was Rich. Let's go over to the other line and get the caller's name and where they're calling from, and we will jump back in with them here when we return to the radio. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Randy in Fairbanks.
Hello, Randy in Fairbanks. Hold the line, my friend. This is the other Randy, the official, or the one is the official and one is the you're the unofficial Randy in Fairbanks, I guess is what we would say.
I can go along with that.
You can go along with that. All right. Well, hold the line there, Randy, and we'll be right back to you. Oh man. Okay. Oh, I'm tired, folks. I'll be honest with you. It's been last couple days. Kind of wore me down. I am so glad that it's Friday. So glad that it's Friday. All right. Thank you for the well wishes in the chat room. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it hit me harder than I've lost other animals, but this one was hard. Well, there's no two ways about it. I put several of my own dogs down myself, and there'd have been no way I'd have been able to do that with this. Not a chance. Okay. Let me go back through here. Oh, there's a bunch of stuff going on here. All right. What else we got going on? Good morning, fellow unmuzzled free citizens. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, friends and neighbors. Norway had 5 killed by the radical. Yeah, we were going to talk about that today. The Norwegian Muslim convert who got a bow and arrow and went out and killed a bunch of people. Did you see this? It's insane. But of course, you think that there's going to be a big push for the bow and arrow loophole? Yeah, probably not. Probably not. They're probably not going to complain too much about that as well. I mean, it could be the black powder loophole. It could be the bow and arrow loophole. It could be, Anyway, this is just another crazy reason why we've got all these other things going on in the world. People wanting to control people. That's what it's all about. All right. I caught myself this past week. I almost said so-and-so made me so mad I could just shoot them. The problem was I was picking up a grade at school. I get it, but I hate that our society is that way. Yeah, I mean, you got to be careful what you're going to say. I mean, even if I remember somebody was telling me the other day they got a Facebook post where they were, there was like something about a spider or something, and somebody said kill it with fire, and they got banned from Facebook for 3 days because it was a threatening. Somebody else said I could just strangle somebody, or I could just strangle them over that. It's not a literal I could just strangle them, but they got banned. I mean, everybody's becoming so. Nobody can. We're so high strung. I mean, this is exhausting, isn't it? Isn't it exhausting trying to conform to all this stuff? I mean, I understand now why people become hermits. That's all I got to say. People become hermits. I'm going to sit over here, you people. All right, so we're going to get back into it. Here we go. The Michael Dukes Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Do me a favor. Would you like and share this video? Because apparently there wasn't any notifications today. Like and share. Like and share. Like and share. Here we go. Well, okay, welcome back to the program. We are continuing ahead with your phone calls on the Pivotel call-in line. I got some other headlines here we can dive into on this Firearms Friday, but we're taking gun calls and offered advice and whatever wisdom I can scrape out of my little gourd here on guns and gun laws. Randy is up in Fairbanks, the unofficial Randy. We got the official Randy and the unofficial Randy. Let's go over here to Randy and see what he has to say. Good morning, my friend. What's on your mind?
Well, I can understand your feeling about your dog, having to put your dog down. I've done that a few times myself, and it's just wrenches your heart around, and you cannot. If you haven't done it, then it's hard to explain. My worst time was when I had to put my dog down, and then I buried her in the backyard, and it was end of October, and I had to use a pickaxe to get through about 6-8 inches of frozen ground.
Right.
And that was,
right.
And the whole time I'm just crying, because I'm burying my dog.
Yeah.
And she was a good-sized dog, and it was very, very hard. But anyways, what I really called about this morning was I have an interesting story. In 1967, a friend of mine and I left the state right after the flood, or worked here for a while after the flood, and then so it was late October of '67, and we traveled up and down the West Coast after I bought a car, and then went over to Virginia, and I tried to live there, but I could not. And so I came back up here in April of '68, and I lost track with my friend that I traveled with. We were pretty good buddies, and anyways, he left a rifle with me, his grandfather's rifle that he had inherited.
Right.
And I finally made contact with him this summer, and I asked him if he wants his rifle back, and he said, "Yeah, I do." And now, so I'm going through this business with the FFL, transfers, but I just had a friend tell me, who is quite knowledgeable about guns, that if I'm transferring a rifle from me to my friend, when it's his rifle and there's no money being exchanged other than the shipping costs, that I can send it. I don't need a FFL process.
Yeah, I mean, there's two different ways you can do it. Since it is his rifle and it's not yours, he loaned it to you, or he left it with you. Technically, there is no transfer because it's his property. Now, it depends on if you can get a common carrier to take it, because your friend is right. You could just ship it from him, his name at your address, to his name at his new address via FedEx or UPS, if they will allow it. If you're declaring it or whatever else. I know that's people who have done that in the past and done very well at it. Or if you ship it through a common carrier, over the ground or whatever, you could ship it that way. Or you can take it to an FFL and they will log you, even though you're not the owner. They will log you as the owner, and they will log he'll transfer it and he'll get it from an FFL down there, and they'll do the same thing. They'll ship it through a common carrier, but because they're an FFL, UPS and FedEx are a little more forgiving on that kind of stuff, because some of them they're a little more strident about shipping firearms, so to speak. So. But yeah, it is true. It is his firearm. You've never purchased it. No money's ever changed hands. You've had it, and he needs to get it back. It's his firearm. By law, no transfer really needs to occur. You're just shipping it to him.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Okay.
And UPS and FedEx are a little more forgiving on long guns than they are on handguns. So, you may not have a problem if you're doing that.
Yeah.
So. There you go.
Okay. Well, thank you. I didn't know that, and so I thought, I'm gonna ask a guy that calls himself an expert.
Yeah. Well, you know what that means. You know what that means, right? You know what that means. When the guy calls himself an expert, he is obviously not. That's for sure. All right. Well, thank you, Randy.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Appreciate you calling in, and thanks for the story on your dog. I know I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, it's confusing, all the laws and everything else you've got to work through. I have offered advice. I've had people ask me for advice several times, moving in and moving out of the state, on the best way to transit their firearms. And I have often said that if it was me and I was traveling out of state, I would save that one last plane trip. Whether I was sending my wife or my spouse or one of my kids back up or whatever, I would buy a multi-gun case and put all the guns in one case and lock it down and fly it on an airplane, because that's just the easiest way to do it. You can drive guns through Canada, long guns. You can't drive handguns through Canada. You can drive long guns through Canada. And so you could do that if you're going to transit out physically and do that. But yeah, it's a hot mess trying to get from one state to the other. Well, It's trying to get from Alaska to other states. It's a hot mess to try and do that. In other states, you just drive them across the state line. And, just be careful when you transit. I remember one time I was carrying a concealed weapon, and I'm driving from Oregon, and I wanted to get to, where were we going? Were we going to Reno? I think we were going to Reno. And I drove out of the bottom part of Oregon, and there was like a 70-mile tail that goes through Northern California. And I'm like, I probably should drive around, but I'm too tired. And I just drove I'm carrying a handgun, and I go through from Oregon into California. You don't want to get caught on something like that. So, but at least there you could drive it across some border. Here, everything you got to do has got to be flown or shipped or whatever else. It's a hot mess for sure. All right, let's go over here and see what you have to say. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Michael. This is Bubba from North Pole.
Good morning, Bubba. What's on your mind?
Hey, got a question on that Randy shipping the gun thing. Can you take, like, for example, a shotgun, can you break it down and ship half of the gun so you don't have the whole gun? Can you mail half a gun and then mail the other half of the gun in 2 separate shipments?
You could. I mean, you're fully able to do that if you want to. You could ship uppers and lowers. Well, I mean, technically, the firearm receiver is still a firearm, right? If you're shipping the upper barrels and stuff, then you're not shipping a firearm. You're shipping just pieces and parts. But yeah, anytime you ship that receiver, it's a firearm. Okay. But you know what I mean? Maybe it makes it more inobtrusive. I mean, if I was going to ship a shotgun or an AR or something like that, I would probably break it down into the smallest package possible, just to make sure that it doesn't look like a firearm, because there's still theft still occurs and things like that. But yeah, you could do that.
Okay, I was curious what the law was on that. But the receiver is a part that's the receiver is the firearm according to the law. Anything with the receiver component with the stamped serial number is the firearm under the color of law. That's for sure. Okay, well, you've answered my question I've had for a while. All right, thank you, buddy.
All right, thank you.
For your show.
I appreciate it. Thank you for calling in this morning. 433-3150, 433-3150. And this also is where it pays to to educate yourself on the laws of transporting firearms. You really need to understand, especially if you're going to go to an airline and through TSA. Brian in the chat room says that he flew a pair of pistols out of Las Vegas once. He said the TSA lady about wet herself inspecting them. And that reminds me of the time that I went down to Front Sight in Vegas to do some combat rifle training. And I didn't have enough money at the time to fly. I was flying on mileage. I can't remember what the restriction was. The problem was that I couldn't get into Las Vegas at the time. And so I got into Flagstaff, which is about a 5-hour drive, 4-hour drive. And so I flew in, no problem, did it, went to Front Sight, did the 2 or 3 days, 4 days, whatever it was of the combat rifle course, drove back to Flagstaff, and Flagstaff is a very tiny airport. I mean, it is a tiny airport. And I got there, and I've got this big roll-behind rifle case, big Pelican case, and I'm here to check in, and they're like, okay. I said, well, here's my firearms declaration, here's all this stuff, and I said, I'm sure the TSA needs to, inspect it, and they brought me over to the. They said, oh, the TSA people are right over there, and there's, this is a tiny airport. I mean, if you've ever been to the Fairbanks International Airport, it was about the size of just the departure, counters. I mean, it's tiny, and there's like 4 TSA agents standing around picking their noses. And so I rolled it over there, said, hey, ladies, there was 3 ladies there. I said, I've got to declare this, and we need to inspect it. And I opened it up, and inside I had 2 ARs broken down and broken apart, and a pistol, and some, everything else, and ammunition. I had a box of ammunition and the magazines, and I opened that up, and man, the saucers, their eyes got big, and oh, you can't do that. And they had a heartache over the fact that I had a brand new box of 357 Magnum rounds with a pistol, a little revolver that I had in there. And they're, oh, you just can't, and I'm like, no, the law says it has to be. No, I said, no, the law. And so finally one of the other guys walks over, a big tall guy in a TSA uniform, and he's like, no, he's right. You're wrong. I mean, and luckily I knew the law, because I'm like, yeah, no, I'm right. This is, this is legal. This is what I'm doing is legal. It's in the factory container and everything. But yeah, all 3 of these ladies just were like I had uncorked a nuclear weapon or something inside this tiny little airport. It's crazy stuff. All right, we got another segment coming up, and I've got one line on hold, but I just bloviated, unfortunately, too far here, and I got to take a quick break. So caller, hold the line. I'll be right to you. And then we will take some more calls and go over some more of these headlines here as we continue. It is know the law, my friend. That is your friend. We will return in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Don't forget you can check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Michael Duke Show. You can also catch us on YouTube, on Twitch TV. The podcasts are available every day after the show on Google, CastBox, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, and, of course, Spotify. Back with more Common Sense Radio right after this.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we're in the break, and I got a couple lines on hold. I'm going to go to them here and get their names and where they're calling from to get them all set up for the return to the radio. Let's start over here. Good morning. Who's this?
Hey, Michael. How you doing? It's Fred. How you been?
Hey, my friend Fred. How are you, sir? How's life treating you down there?
Well, just another day in paradise over here in Rhode Island.
At least there's... do you have snow yet? I'm just asking for a friend.
No, not yet. I mean, actually, the temperature is in the 70s, which is very unusual for this time of year.
Wow.
78 the other day, 76 today. Yeah.
Well,
hasn't hit us yet, but I'm sure it's just around the corner.
All right. Well, hold the line, Fred. We'll be right back to you here when we return to the radio. Over here we go. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Brian calling you from the Hook.
Mr. Hook. All right. Hold the line here. We'll chat about your TSA victory there. So hold on, hold the line here, and I'll be back to you in just a hot minute as well. Larry says, know the law and get to the airport early enough to argue with TSA and still make your flight. Yeah. I mean, that was back in the early days of TSA, and yeah, they didn't have, I guess they didn't have, they had the same authority, but I guess it hadn't been solidified yet. They hadn't. Anyway, I just loved the look on the guy's face when he just looked at him, and he almost rolled his eyes, which, he's just like, oh, no, it's legal. Just, yes, let him through. You're good to go. Lock it back up. Put the thing in it. Go, go, go. Laura says she's canning beans today. Talk about firepower. I recommend putting a pinch of ginger. And was it ginger or nutmeg? Can't remember. There's always a pinch of something that Grandma put in the beans to nullify some of that effect. It must have been ginger. I can't remember now. Have to ask my dad. I can't remember whatever it was. But whatever it was supposed to cut down on your firepower. Firepower. Not nutmeg. Maybe it was nutmeg. I can't. It was either ginger or nutmeg. It was something like that. Just to put. I mean, I put cinnamon in with it. I don't care. But just I'm a proponent of natural gas. I mean, and oil and gas and natural gas. Can you tell that I'm a little tired and punchy? All right. What else we got? What else? I've never noticed this before, but ever since I started broadcasting, multicasting to multiple things, I don't use the Facebook dashboard anymore for the Facebook video. And I never noticed before that when I ask people to like and share the video, that there is a flood. Sometimes there's a flood of likes and loves and all these floating things that go across the screen. I didn't know that before. You guys are all, mashing the button a couple times. I didn't realize that. So that's nice. It's something that I just discovered, that there was all these, that people may only hit it once, the like button or the love button or the laughing button or whatever, but it pops up all over the place. And that's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to see those as they go through. So thank you for that. I'd never seen that on that end of I'd never been on that end of the spectrum before. Now here we are. Visions of blazing saddles just came across Larry's mind. Yeah, somebody wants me to start a methane farm. Well, they say we got enough hot air here. All we need is hot air and natural gas, and we've got everything you could possibly need. And I am happy to provide both to you if that's what you really want out there. All right. So anyway, I just said thank you for all the likes and stuff, but I'll remind you again to like and share this video. And don't forget to check me out on these other platforms too. If you haven't subscribed or liked my YouTube channel, you might want to do that in case Facebook goes down again one day or they kick me off for saying something bad. And you may want to go out to twitch.tv. I mean, I don't know. Go to my YouTube channel. All the links are at the top of my YouTube channel as well. You can do that as well. But, you never know. You might want to look at me through another portal instead of Facebook one of these days. And we may add more as the time goes through. It just depends on where we're at. But feel free to do so. It's coffee time. I'm ready for some coffee right now. All right, my friends, like and share. Don't forget to check us out. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. Don't forget to check. Patreon. Don't forget to check out Patreon. I've got a new Patreon that I forgot to mention. I'm such a bad radio host. I have a super chat. Yes, I can see everything. I have a super chat. What they call consolidated unified chat. I have that as well. So I can see it all at once. But I forgot to mention the new, gotta go. Here we go. Let's jump back into it. Here we go. All right, welcome back to the program, The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Let's continue ahead. We got a couple phone calls on hold. My buddy Fred is out in Rhode Island. I don't know how he originally found out about the show. Must have been through the interwebs of some kind, but he's been listening through the interwebs for a while here and calling into the show. How did you find out about the show to begin with, Fred? That's my question.
At the time, my girlfriend's working, and she's working up in the Alaska area, up in the Fairbanks area, and she used to listen to you, all the time, during the weekend.
Right.
Firearms Friday. So she told me about Firearms Friday, and we checked it out on the online radio box, and they've been a listener ever since.
The online radio box. I love you so much right now, Fred. All right. So what's on your mind today, sir?
Well, you mentioned anything about the, the firearms or the serial number, the being the firearm, and the receiver or the fire control, whatever holds the fire control group of the firearm. And I remember, there's a number of manufacturers in Europe that import to the United States.
Right.
And their serial number, everything. They barrel, the receiver, the
right.
slide.
That's true. That's true.
Everything's got the serial number on it. So is the serial number on it, does that make each component a firearm, or is it just strictly go by the U.S. regulation?
Yeah.
Just the receiver.
The receiver is marked in most code as the designated part that is the firearm. I know that they serialize barrels and stocks and all different kinds of things. But yes, the receiver is the actual component that's on a pistol, on a rifle. It's the receiver that is the firearm. But if you are right, most people don't know that European firearms are stamped everywhere with a matching serial number. But in America they only stamp the receiver usually. So.
Yeah. Well, they only recognize the receiver as a firearm. I guess
that's true. Yeah, and they only recognize. Yeah, everything.
Now that's under the federal law, right? Now,
that's federal.
And I live next door to Massachusetts. Massachusetts, under state law, I guess they consider everything with a serial number on it. You need have all the appropriate accoutrements to to pick up a firearm, even though maybe they don't recognize it as well. Maybe under federal law, it's only the receiver. But if you got a barrel that's serialized, you treat it like a firearm. It's slide is serialized, you treat it like a firearm. So I guess that's the state. That would only be a state initiative.
Yeah, I would assume that would just be a state thing, although I think you'd have some questions about supremacy under federal law and everything else. But, yeah, I mean, I could take a whole bunch of AR-15 uppers without any serial numbers on them and just ship them like cargo. I mean, they're just pieces and parts. It is the receiver component. If I had a bunch of, yeah. So, but, yeah, I don't know how state laws would interact with the federal law at that level.
Yeah, well, I know that Massachusetts treats it as, they want you to have the FID card or the carry permit if it has a serial number on it, regardless of whether it's receiver, a barrel, or slide, or whatever. So I was kind of wondering if that was just strictly adherence to federal law, which would probably supersede the state law anyway. But then again, in Massachusetts, I guess it's a question up to the courts. But I wasn't too sure then how that actually interacted, and so in the federal law, if it has a serial number on it or not.
Well, there you go. Hopefully we can clear that up for everybody out there. Fred, I appreciate you calling in and asking the question and joining us on that. Thank you.
Okay, you have a good week.
You too, my friends. Let's go over and talk to Brian, who's out in the Fish Hook, the Wasilla area. Brian was the one that was telling us a story about his TSA chat here before. Good morning, Brian. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. My condolences on the loss of your dog. I know how that can go.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, I was coming out of Las Vegas, and I had researched the airlines and knew what their policies were, and the gate or the agent didn't have any problem when I went to the TSA. I opened up my suitcase and then opened up the cases, and